Let's go back in time a little bit. Let's say the year is 1890, and you're traveling by train, and you want to have a bite to eat. Now, not all trains had dining cars then. Your train is pulling into a station stop called Saugus, and you go inside the train station, and you've got 30 minutes there to enjoy a meal at what was then called Tolfree Eating House. Let's say you're traveling by automobile right after World War I, and you stop for a bite to eat again in the town of Saugus, only now the eatery is called the Saugus Cafe. And it's no longer in the train station, it's a little brick building across the street. Let's fast forward a few years to sometime in the late 1930s. You and your family are going to go to Hoot Gibson's Rodeo Arena. But before you do, you stop for a bite to eat at the new Saugus Cafe. Or maybe it's now the late 1950s, and you and your kids are driving to see the LA Dodgers play Major League Baseball. But you're hungry, and you decide to stop for a meal at a local eatery, only now there are two buildings right next to each other called the Saugus Cafe. Better yet, maybe like me, you moved to Los Angeles back in 1976, and your old friend Michael Wolf says to you, "Hey, I want to take you to the oldest restaurant in all of LA County. It's called the Saugus Cafe." Hello, my name is Philip Scorza, and I'd like to welcome you to our show, Points of Interest. Here we are at the Saugus Train Station. Let's see if my friend Leon is here. Hey, Leon, oh, there he is.
Oh, hey, Phil. Don't you have a key to this place by now?
No, I don't have a key to this place. How are you, Leon?
How you doing?
This is my old friend, Leon Worden. He's a longtime member of the Santa Clarita Valley Historical Society. He used to be president of it.
Long time ago. I'm really older now.
And he's going to give us a tour of the train station and where Tolfree Eating House used to be inside. Something like that, right?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, well,
should we go in?
Come on in.
Let's go in. Here we go.
Come on in. Of course, I was kidding. I know you know that this was the original home of the original Saugus Cafe.
Right, right.
Let me show you around.
Oh, I'd love to. I'm looking around. I don't see a dining room.
Well, it's not here anymore. You know, you got to understand this building didn't look like this when the diner was here. At that time, this was a solid wall right here. We're standing in the passenger waiting room.
Okay.
So the passenger waiting room of the train station was just this little narrow space right here. There was a solid wall here, and if you get the lights just right, you can't see it now, but if the lights just right, you can look at the ceiling and you can see that the wall extended all the way from edge of the building to edge of the building.
Okay.
And so the diner was everything from here back that way.
That way. Okay.
The new owners, because the Saugus name was on the building,
right,
they called it the Saugus Cafe. And they kept it here until 1916 when the railroad needed more space for growing operations.
Okay.
And so the diner had to go, and it moved literally across the street.
Okay.
And so the building as it is now right here.
Yes.
In 1917, they expanded the passenger room. So they knocked out this wall, which was the back wall of the diner.
All right.
And pushed the wall that way to expand the passenger room. And they did a few more things which are over that way.
Tolfree Eating House.
Yeah,
here we go. Let's go see it.
And that picture up there on the wall is full width of this train station.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you see that doorway right above the lamp there?
Yes, I do. Yes.
That's approximately, it's not exactly, but it's approximately where this door is.
Okay. Okay.
So
all right.
The back of the bar ran that way, and then there was seating where we're standing here. This is what I mean when I say it's confusing. You see on the very, very edge of the picture.
Yes.
There's you see the edge of a door frame.
Yes.
That door did not move. That door.
Yeah.
That door is that door right there.
That door there. Okay, let's get out of the way.
Excuse our mess. You know, this is probably the only time the public's going to see this mess because we don't let the public see this mess. But you see all those 3.5-inch boards between that door and that door there?
Yeah.
Well, That's a lot more distance than what you see
Oh, right.
between
Between
the
that door and that wall.
and the existing wall.
Yes, yes, yes.
So this took some time to figure out. They put a new wall in a little bit closer. And if we go into this room, which is also not yet open to the public,
Right, but it's...
I can show you where the kitchen and pantry were.
Let's go see. Let's go see.
Over here. Now the thing is, in this building, you want to look up at the rafters. You see those cuts in the rafters up there?
Yes.
Those are actually, that's actually the outline. That's where the exterior walls were.
For the...
Of the kitchen in front, and we believe in the pantry at back.
Right.
And the other thing that was happening, World War I, Southern Pacific was, and all the railroads were handling a lot of troop movements. So you had increased need for passenger service, space.
Yeah.
So you had to have more room for more passengers in the train station. You had to have more room for more employees, the signal maintainers in the train station. You had more trains, so you needed more train operators.
Yeah.
And so something had to go, and that something was the Saugus Cafe.
Leon, I got an idea. What do you say you and I go over to the Saugus Cafe and have a cup of coffee?
Are you buying?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I told Leon I would buy him a cup of coffee here at the Saugus Cafe. But before we start the story of the Saugus Cafe and our community, all of this can be found on our website, the Historical Society's website, which is
scvhistory.com.
scvhistory.com. And this is the guy that makes it happen. So just so you know. Anyway, let's get started here. The rails joining Southern California with Northern California came right through our area here back in, I believe it was, I don't remember it myself, but I believe it was in 1876.
A lot of things happened in 1876.
That's right. It was a big year.
It was a big year for us.
And then in 1887, the Southern Pacific Railroad built a rail line starting across the street all the way out to a place called Ventura.
Right, that's 11 years later.
11 years later, and it went through Alcomulos, and it went through Piru and Fillmore, Santa Paula, Saticoy, etc., all that stuff, right? Along the Magic Mountain Parkway, in case people wonder where that was at. All right. Naturally, they needed a railroad station where the two rails came together, and so they built one right across the street in 1888, right? And they called that train station Saugus. And they built that nice depot, which we have at Hart Park.
Which we were just in.
Which we were just in, right? And a couple years later, somebody started a restaurant inside that train station.
Well, here's what we know.
Yeah.
We know that the depot was built in the summer of '88. And we know that. Why do we know that? We know that because it was reported in real time in the newspaper. Read a newspaper from 1888.
Okay.
There are three brief accounts in the newspaper. I think it was the Herald. You could look it up on scvhistory.com to know exactly which paper it was. But in the summer of '88, there's first report says train station's under construction. Next report says train station's almost completed. Next report in late summer says train station's open now. So we know that it was 1888. That's a primary source.
Right.
So we know for a fact that the depot was built in 1888. It was built to house a diner. Because like I said earlier, if you wanted to eat, you
needed a diner.
You needed to stop
that was
at
a big
the
deal
big train station that had a
Right.
diner. We know the Tolfree family was operating in 1890 because we have a piece of stationery that has a postmark on it. 1890. So we know for a fact that the Tolfree family was operating in 1890.
And what did they call that restaurant of
They
theirs?
call that Tolfree's Eating House.
Tolfree's Eating House. Okay, all right. And that was in the station.
That was inside
All
the
right,
train
and that
station,
ran
inside the
toward-
depot.
But the Woods brothers, Richard and Martin, came along and they took it over, still in the station for a
Still
while.
in the train station, yes.
And then eventually they moved it out of the station.
Yeah, at some point they opened Wood's Garage.
That's right. That's right.
Actually,
Okay.
I think they took over an earlier garage. It was probably, I don't know, maybe it was a blacksmith shop.
Across the street
there
from
weren't
the
a lot of
station.
cars in 1899. Right?
No, there weren't, but there was a few.
They already had an established garage, and by the time they moved, and we already talked about why the cafe moved out of
Right.
the
Right.
train station in 1916. By that time,
Wait, let's go back. What year?
1916.
1916. They moved across the street.
Right, because like we
business-
said, like by that time the railroad needed to use all of the available space inside.
Right,
the
they
depot
needed
for
more room
railroad
for
operations, right?
passengers
So the diner
and
had to go.
luggage
So
and
they
stuff.
moved.
Okay.
So yes, the Woods moved it across the street in 1916.
Well, let's stop for a second and see how the town of Saugus was building up, because there was a station agent that took over the job.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember his name.
Ori Bercaw is the person
Ori
you're
Bercaw,
thinking of.
and
yeah.
you actually met his daughter. You told me.
Well, she used to serve on the board of our historical society. at the
Oh,
time.
so this is the,
in
and
fact-
he's the guy who said, "Move across the street." Then. Oh, but he put a whole bunch of buildings over here too.
Well, I don't know, and we'll find out one day.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you how long. I couldn't tell you whether Ori Bercaw was still the station agent in 1916.
Okay.
And then maybe because he was the only person in town, he became the railroad station agent in December of 1906.
Excuse me. There was one other job that came along with that, wasn't he? Postmaster.
Well, yeah,
As well too.
Yeah, because
sort of had two.
It's kind of like a one-man show.
He wore two
Although
hats.
They ran 24 hours. They had a lot of employees, but yeah, they wore actually more than two hats. So the train station agent is the railroad agent. He's the Pullman service agent.
Right.
For the passenger cars, he's the railroad express agency agent, or as it
Shipping
was
and
called,
all
the
that,
American
yeah.
Railway Express packages,
Right.
like the FedEx or whatever, or UPS
Of the
in
day.
its
Yeah.
And he was the Western Union agent. You could go to the
Right.
train station
That's
and
right.
send a telegram. And
That's
he was,
true.
And so that
That's
was
true. He wore many hats.
And well, yeah, not only that, he got a lot of paychecks.
And then at the same time, he's building businesses across
so
the
yeah,
street.
he starts deciding to build up a town. And remember,
What was his last name?
his name was Bercaw.
I'm surprised he didn't name the place
Burkawville, right?
Burkawville or something. I
Burkawville,
know.
Yeah, it should have been.
I know.
But remember, the only thing here that was called at the turn of the century, at the turn of the last century,
Yeah.
the only thing that was called Saugus was the train station.
Oh, that's true. The post office was.
Because in 1891, I guess there were enough people coming from farms around the valley or something who wanted to send a letter, and where else are they going to go? The only thing out here is the train station.
Right.
So for whatever reason, and we don't know why, for whatever reason, the post office department, as it was called at that time, decided to call this place Surrey. But we don't know why. It's of course not.
Right,
We don't know why they called it Surrey, but it was called Surrey, and they kept it calling Surrey up until 1915. So this was
1915,
While,
okay.
while Ori Bercaw was doing all this stuff, building a hotel, which had a diner in it.
Right.
In the first decade of the 1900s.
Hotel, he built a general store.
So he had a diner there. There was another diner that came in by certainly by the 1920s. And so there was a hotel, general store.
All those things.
He built a hotel because the railroad needed the space.
Sure. Sure.
Couldn't have a hotel in the depot anymore.
Okay. All right.
So yeah,
that's
he
good.
built all that stuff.
That's good.
And-
So anyway, the Woods owned it. They moved it across
cafe.
the street to their first location, and we have pictures of the A-frame.
It's over that way.
It was over this way, the first location. And let's talk about the owners.
I figure
The Woods owned it, and they sort of
Woods owned it.
handed it down through their generation.
Yeah, and it stayed in the family for a long time. The way I think of it is the building that we're sitting in right now, which is what most people know as the Saugus Cafe, is actually the third.
It's the
iteration,
third, that's
because
right. And we have
number
pictures
one's the
of
train
all three of
station.
them.
Number two's over there, which
Right.
is now the Superette.
Okay.
And number three is where we're sitting.
Right, okay.
And the
okay.
Superette, it extended out farther into the street.
Well, that's an interesting thing, and we'll get to that in a little while. But I was wondering, so Martin and Richard Wood had it, and then they gave it to, I have written
Well,
down
actually,
on a
I think
piece
it
of
was
paper.
Fielding Wood, Martin's son, Fielding
Oh,
Wood.
Fielding. Okay,
Yeah,
I
think it was
have.
Fielding.
Who was Helen Wood? Do we know?
I don't remember.
Helen Wood was married to Byron Cohn. I have all of this written down just so we won't remember. Okay, and they ran the place from 1926 to 1936. And then a judge, a fellow named Clarence MacDougall, married Olive, a descendant of the Woods.
Yeah, Judge
daughter?
Mack.
Oh, you knew him?
No, I didn't know him. He died a long time ago. But Joe,
But you heard the name.
I didn't know the guy who built the train station in 1888.
No, I know that,
his
but you
name.
know the name. Okay, all right. Okay.
Judge Mack never went to law school. Judge Mack,
Can you do that?
back then, yeah, he was the justice of the peace.
How do you
And
really?
the justice of what? Heck,
So I could open up my own court?
Art Perkins was justice of the peace at one time.
No kidding.
Yeah. So,
I thought you had to have like a law degree.
No. I don't know if there was actually any qualification. A lot
interesting.
of people thought that Judge Mack was kind of like out of his mind. But
right.
in any event,
Yeah.
no, he never went to law school. But he was and so then when the justice court, when the system changed and the justice court became the municipal court, he became our first municipal court judge.
Okay.
And so that's who Judge Mack is now. Olive, his wife, was
Wouldn't it be funny if that was only
a
his first
member
name?
of this family.
Of the Woods family,
Yeah,
and they ran it, descended of the Woods. They ran the cafe all through the 1940s.
Sure.
And the couple sold out to a man named Bill Rolls in 1952. This is what I have in my list.
I used to know the name. I don't know if I ever knew him. That was,
I do know somebody.
75 years ago.
Funny enough, I do know somebody that did know him. He was raised here, but that's beside the point. Okay. So this ended a temporarily 54-year run of the Woods family owning the Saugus Cafe. I'll get back to that in a few minutes. Okay. Bill Rolls, the guy who bought it, tore down the second cafe and built the new Saugus Cafe, the one we're sitting in right now. Okay, got that. But a member of the Woods family returned in 1964 when Frank Cohn took over the cafe from Bill Rolls and ran the place.
Yeah, and they also ran the Bamboo Cafe in Newhall.
Oh, that I didn't know. Okay, so you see, you could have more than one restaurant if you want. It's very good to know. Okay, and then the last thing I have here, a man named Frank Kane took over the cafe in 1974.
Okay.
Then he, by the way, I'm getting all of this from his website. Okay.
I created the website so I wouldn't have to remember it.
No, good thinking. Good thinking. Because as you can tell, I couldn't remember it either. Okay, fine. A man named Frank Kane took over the cafe in 1974. Then he sold the place to a man named Steve Huang. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Just 5 years later, Steve Huang ran into financial problems, shutting the place down in 1983. After a brief period, the cafe finally wound up back in the hands of Fred Kane again, and he managed to put the Saugus Cafe back on fairly firm financial footings.
Right.
So
and
that's
after
the
that-
history we have on our website up
Right.
to the
And then there's
current,
quite a bit more history that happened after that, which I couldn't tell you.
which we don't have on our website because it's not ready for.
Because you haven't written it yet.
You're going to wait a long time for me to write it, I'll tell you. Okay, all right, but that's a good brief history of this place. It's still here, the oldest eating establishment in business in LA County. Now let's talk a little bit about, I guess this would include both the website and also the first history book written, and our old friend Jerry Reynolds. Jerry Reynolds, I did about 5 shows with him, points of interest shows, great fellow. He wrote this wonderful history book, and it was put out in 1990 called
92 or
92? Well, I don't know.
92,
It said on the website 90, but I'm not in charge of the website. Okay. Santa Clarita Valley of the Golden Dream is the book. Jerry was a founding member of our historical society. He was our first curator. I met him around 1995. When I first met him, I told him about our show, and he said, I'll help you any way I can. We did 5 shows together. It was great. Poor Jerry passed away about a year later, unfortunately.
96.
And yeah, 96, right? We
Same
know
year SCBHistory.com started.
that's right. But we all know that sometimes people can get history wrong. You know, and so
Everybody does their best.
we have to go back and we have to correct it. And why don't you tell us about some of the ways that we do go back and correct it, such as the website?
Website. I mean, the answer's in the question, right?
Yeah.
The internet, it just exploded our access
Yes.
to information. I mean, you think about it. There was no internet. We started SCBHistory.com in 1996, which is really when the public internet was in its infancy.
Yes,
a
that's
lot of
true.
people weren't even on, weren't online
Right.
in '96.
Right.
And Jerry didn't live to see that period,
Yeah.
much less the historians who came before him.
Right.
And,
Right.
A.B. Perkins, who is recognized, or who we consider to be our first town historian. He arrived in 1919 and he died in 1977.
Okay.
And there were a couple other people who were helping along the way, but A.B. Perkins is the first one we really consider to be our first town historian. He did a lot of research. The Historical Society started in 1975, Perkins died in '77, and so Jerry became the person. And he took basically Perkins' work and carried it forward, and he would have more, people would bring him photographs and more information and things like that. But really, if you consider the internet and how it's revolutionized our access to information, if you consider that to be the new age, right? Then everything that came before is essentially, sort of, more true than not, oral history committed to writing.
Well, let me give you some of the things that Jerry Reynolds said.
Okay.
Some of the people that have dined here.
Okay.
And Jerry Reynolds may have
Take it
gotten
with a
wrong.
bag of cement.
Take it with a bag of whatever. Okay, let's see. A few things that Jerry wrote, and maybe the first and biggest ones are the two presidents that supposedly stopped off here
Two?
in.
It's not 5 or 10 or 12 by now?
Jerry wrote about two presidents. I don't remember either of them, but that's beside the point.
You don't remember Benjamin Harrison?
Not
Weren't you
Benjamin
around then?
Harrison or Teddy Roosevelt, which I would love
Well, I
to
didn't
have
know
met.
you knew him.
No. But the point is, they supposedly, according to Jerry, stopped in the station and came over to the Saugus Cafe and had something to eat. Do you think that's true or not?
Well, I know the situation with Benjamin Harrison.
Yeah. What
was it, 1893?
Harrison was president around 1893, yes.
So, yeah.
Came
Jerry
through here.
said Benjamin Harrison stopped and ate in the Saugus Cafe.
Okay.
I totally understand why he said that.
Why?
Because he read a newspaper article.
Oh, I see.
And I
Okay.
even have the exact copy of the newspaper article
do?
that he read.
Okay.
That said that Benjamin Harrison was scheduled to stop at Saugus and greet a crowd on his way to Santa Barbara.
Wonder where you got the crowd.
Yeah. Well, actually, they were coming from Santa Paula.
Oh, they were coming from Santa Paula this way.
They were going to meet him, and he was going
Okay.
to get out, and he was
All
going
right.
to address them.
That's good.
At Saugus.
Okay. And
And so Jerry wrote that he stopped.
That he
ate at
stopped
the
here and
Saugus
ate here.
Cafe
Yeah,
because
sure.
of the schedule. Because
Sure.
if he's going to stop at the depot, he's going to eat in the
Right.
diner inside
Right.
the depot, right?
right,
Right. But
but
what Jerry didn't see was the follow-up article in the newspaper, which you can now find on the internet.
on the internet, okay, and
Which
that said,
says that his train was late, didn't stop at Saugus, he stopped in Santa Paula instead.
okay, all right, so we've corrected that.
So
then.
that's
we've
one of the
corrected
things
it.
that's correct.
And did Teddy Roosevelt stop here?
Probably.
Probably, okay.
Because I wish I could remember where, but I know I've seen photos
Okay,
that are dated 1904 of Teddy Roosevelt in Acton visiting his friend Governor Gage.
right, that's right. Yeah.
And at that time, 1904, if he was in Acton, he probably came from Los Angeles. Probably came up on
Probably
the, on
went
the,
through
on the-
Saugus then.
He probably came up on the line through Los
Okay.
Angeles, through Saugus, and up.
All right,
As to whether he got out at Saugus,
we don't know. All right. Well, there's a couple of other things that Jerry talked about. And let me just mention them here. He said supposedly these people had a meal at the Saugus Cafe. John Ford, the director, D.W. Griffith, the director, had lunch here. Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, Charlie Chaplin stopped by in 1919. Now we know that Charlie Chaplin actually made a movie across the street at the at the train station. We know that. So maybe
Oh,
he
that's
did, maybe he
totally
didn't.
possible. I
It's
don't know
totally
where
possible.
he gets that.
Now here's three guys though, famous guys. Harry Carey, who had a ranch up San Francisco Canyon. Hoot Gibson, owner of the Rodeo Arena,
Saugus
Speedway. And William S. Hart all lived here, and all were supposedly frequent guests at the Saugus Cafe.
It certainly could have been.
Certainly think so. I think that's a good possibility. Something about William Mulholland. He had a big what was that thing called? He had a big setup out here when he was building the dam.
Yeah.
Let me see if I could find that here. Construction. The Los Angeles Owens Valley Aqueduct, and supposedly had a big construction camp.
Well, right here.
Right here.
Actually, probably on the other side of the Magic Mountain Parkway.
Right.
In Newhall Avenue.
Yeah, that's where the camp
intersection, or Railroad Avenue intersection here.
Okay.
There was a LA Aqueduct construction camp set up in 1907. So that was really, remember, like I said, Saugus was only the train station.
Yeah.
Until 1907.
And a few businesses that Mr. Bercaw had.
1907. Bercaw.
Oh, that's right.
1907. Bercaw's 1906, 1907.
Okay.
And it's quite possible
so it's still
that he started
on.
to build a hotel and things like that because
of
the
that.
construction camp was there.
Okay.
In 1907.
Okay.
So for
we
almost
can-
20 years, from 1888 or 1887 when the line went through, 1888 when the depot was built until 1907,
Okay.
there was nothing else out here.
No.
So,
Well, no wonder those presidents didn't.
so
stop
certainly Mulholland would have come through and checked on his aqueduct, and he could very certainly have
have had a nice cup of coffee.
inside the train station.
All right,
at
all right.
the Saugus Cafe.
All right. So I know what I wanted to ask you about. We do know that certain movies have been filmed here.
Yeah, we're filmed all the time.
They were filming, but I mean,
list.
I know, okay, as a kid growing up in the 1950s, I used to watch a television program called Highway Patrol, starring Roderick Crawford.
No, you are old.
Oh, you got that right. So anyway, and then the thing about television, you know how they rerun things? So I'm sitting in my little place here.
Do you have to like
and I'm
hit
watching
the side of your television?
No. I'm watching highway old reruns of Highway Patrol, and doggone it if I didn't see a scene that was filmed outside of the Saugus Cafe. It was a great scene, and this used to be a parking lot out front.
Sure, Highway Patrol filmed a lot in
That's
the
right,
Saugus
all over.
and
Well,
Newhall area.
also all over
So
LA.
one of the things you're going to see in this clip is well, there's the building that we're sitting in,
Right,
and then you're going to see, instead of kind of continuing flat with the souperette today, you're going
Right.
to see the original Saugus Cafe, the second Saugus Cafe, kind of sticking out at a 90-degree
way
angle.
out into today's
into the
street. The Saugus Cafe, which has been here for 135 years and is now considered the oldest operating restaurant in all of LA County. And it's still here, which I'm grateful for. How about
We're
a
still
toast
here,
to
right here. See, there you go.
the Saugus Cafe? A toast to the oldest eatery in all of LA County, the Saugus Cafe.